I was at an old church in Cambridge, discussing the final arrangements for my wedding. The historic building of First Parish in Cambridge exuded a nostalgic atmosphere that wrapped my heart in warmth the moment I stepped through its doors. Time itself seemed to linger in the air, carrying whispers of countless unions, prayers, and gatherings that had taken place within those ancient walls. The polished wooden pews, worn smooth by a century of worshippers, glowed softly under the filtered sunlight that poured through stained glass windows. The shifting colors of crimson, sapphire, and emerald danced on the floorboards, as if the church itself was blessing me with its quiet magic. Outside, the late May breeze stirred the petals of blooming azaleas in the garden, sending them drifting like tiny fragments of confetti through the air. The season in New England was breathtaking, neither the biting cold of winter nor the heavy humidity of summer, but a perfect balance, full of life and renewal. It felt like the earth was preparing its own celebration for me. As I listened to the deep, majestic tones of the pipe organ echo through the empty sanctuary, my heart swelled with solemnity. The sound filled every corner, wrapping me in an embrace of reverence and awe. I closed my eyes for a moment, imagining how it would feel on my wedding day, the music soaring as I walked down the aisle, each note carrying me closer to Nathan. "Are you sure about this venue?" The church coordinator's voice broke through my thoughts. She looked at me with a trace of worry, her brows furrowed, perhaps imagining the contrast between this humble church and the grand venues other couples often chose. I nodded with certainty, though a small part of me still feared judgment. Our budget was modest, $25,000, less than half the average wedding cost in Cambridge, but Nathan and I had agreed that his student loans took priority over an extravagant event. It wasn't easy to make that decision, knowing what others might think, but for us, it was necessary. "Yes, this is the perfect place for us," I answered, forcing my smile to steady my voice. The reception, too, had been carefully considered. The adjacent Harvest restaurant, a historic brick building with rustic charm, would host our closest friends and colleagues. I pictured the elegant chandeliers casting soft shadows over white tablecloths, the warmth of conversation, and the comfort of knowing that every face in the room belonged to someone who truly cared for us. Nathan and I were just starting our lives as researchers. I spent my days in a biology lab at Harvard, while Nathan devoted himself to developing treatments at MIT. Our combined income of $175,000 wasn't small, but it wasn't enough to chase after glittering illusions, not when weighed down by the chains of student debt. This wedding wouldn't be lavish, but it would be ours, honest, heartfelt, and true, and I believed, perhaps naively, that was all we needed to be happy. That evening, however, my certainty wavered. When I stepped into my parents' home, I was greeted not by comfort but by the sharp sting of comparison. The living room was piled high with glossy wedding catalogs, thick tomes from luxury brands featuring glittering gowns, crystal chandeliers, and sprawling banquet halls. My sister Vanessa sat at the center of it all, her posture regal, her laughter light. Beside her was her fiancé, James, an executive at a powerful pharmaceutical company whose annual income exceeded $400,000. "Look, this is our wedding venue." Vanessa's eyes sparkled as she spread a brochure across the coffee table. The images showed a luxury resort hotel, complete with a grand ballroom, manicured gardens, and glittering chandeliers that dripped like waterfalls of light. Their wedding budget, $150,000, entirely covered by James's family, over 200 guests, a champagne tower, imported caviar, and a 7-course dinner designed by a celebrity chef. Every detail was extravagant, dripping with wealth and prestige. "How lovely," my mother breathed, her face glowing with excitement. She leaned closer, devouring every detail as if it were her own dream come true. My father, too, nodded approvingly, his eyes fixed on the pages as if Vanessa's wedding plans were a golden vision. But when the conversation turned to my wedding, the warmth vanished from their faces. "You're having your wedding in such a cheap church?" I could never show my face to my friends. Mother scoffed, her tone dripping with disdain. Vanessa turned her eyes toward me. That gaze, so sharp, so full of contempt, was one I knew too well. It was the same superiority she had carried since childhood, the unspoken reminder that she was the favored daughter, the golden one. "I'll attend Vanessa's wedding, but I won't come to yours," Mother declared, Her words pierced through me like shards of ice. Father said nothing, but his silence was worse than words. A simple nod sealed his agreement, and I felt my heart shrink beneath the weight of rejection. Since childhood, Vanessa had always been special, the beautiful, sociable daughter who lived up to their dreams. I had chosen another path, one that seemed invisible to them: quiet research, modest goals, and a life built on love rather than appearances. On my way home, tears blurred the city lights outside the car window. My hands trembled as I dialed Nathan's number. His voice, warm and steady, poured through the receiver like a bomb. "It's okay, Olivia," he said softly. "We have our own happiness, even without your family's understanding. We have 50 dear friends who will celebrate with us." His words steadied me. They were simple, but in them was truth. Ours would not be a wedding filled with grandeur, but it would be filled with heart. And maybe, just maybe, that was worth more. The spring breeze carried me forward, past the shadow of my family's rejection. Through the train window, I watched the campus of Harvard bathed in the soft glow of twilight, its ancient buildings standing proudly amidst the fresh greenery. Nathan and I would carve our own path, even without our family's approval. We would hold fast to love and honesty, believing that in them lay the secret to true happiness. Thomas's eyes lingered on me with an intensity that sent a shiver through my chest. His gaze was unreadable, dignity mixed with sadness, disappointment tangled with something almost protective. The atmosphere around him seemed to shift, as though even the air had grown heavier in anticipation of what he was about to say. "Dr. Miller." His voice carried its usual authority, but beneath the steady cadence I caught a tremor of sorrow. "I need to ask you about this post." He turned his smartphone toward me. The light from the screen glowed against the dimly lit reception hall, drawing the eyes of several nearby guests. The image froze me where I sat. Vanessa's Instagram account, updated just 30 minutes earlier. My sister was posing with luxury brand handbags and designer dresses, her lips curled in a smug smile. The caption struck harder than any blade could. "I'm too embarrassed to attend my sister's cheap wedding. I wouldn't want my friends to see such a modest wedding. Real celebs understand, right?" Dozens of likes littered the post, among them, my parents, and beneath it, a comment from my mother, bold and cruel in its casual dismissal. "That's right. The real celebration will be our beloved Vanessa's wedding." The entire venue seemed to stop breathing. The clink of cutlery, the murmur of conversation, all of it evaporated. Silence pressed down, suffocating, as every guest processed the betrayal laid bare before them. I drew in a long, shaky breath. My eyelids fluttered shut for a moment, bracing myself against the wave of humiliation that threatened to swallow me. When I opened my eyes again, there were no tears, only a strange stillness within me. My voice, when it came, was calm, almost too calm. "My family refused to attend my wedding," I said evenly, my gaze sweeping across the shocked faces of my friends and colleagues, "because they believed it was embarrassing." The hush deepened, thick enough to hear the weight of every guest's heartbeat. For the first time, they understood the truth. All the polite excuses about illness, all the whispered speculations, it was nothing but a facade. Thomas straightened. His usually warm demeanor hardened into something cold and resolute. "I apologize," he said abruptly, slipping his phone back into his pocket, "but I must attend to an urgent matter." The gravity in his tone unsettled everyone. Within seconds, he was pacing to the corner of the hall, already dialing. His words cut through the silence with surgical precision. "Mr. President, forgive the interruption, but a serious issue has arisen. We must act immediately regarding our dealings with the Richardson family." That single sentence shifted the room's energy entirely. Chairs scraped softly as executives among the guests turned their heads. Soon, a small group gathered near Thomas, and in a matter of minutes, a video conference was projected onto a tablet. The faces on the screen were grim, lit by the glow of boardroom monitors. "We should immediately review the $50 million development deal," one voice insisted. "The ethical concerns are undeniable." Another chimed in, harsher. "Yes, we must reassess all ties with the Richardson family. Public perception is already turning." Meanwhile, Thomas's fingers moved swiftly across his keyboard, drafting a mass email to industry contacts. His words were crisp, deliberate. Due to the discovery of grave ethical issues, we are immediately reviewing all business relationships with the Richardson family. Actions that disregard basic human values are incompatible with our corporate philosophy. Within minutes, smartphones buzzed across the hall, notifications piling up like alarm bells. News was spreading faster than wildfire. In the distance, James's furious voice exploded from his phone, audible even over the low hum of the guests. "What have you done, Vanessa? Do you realize what's happening? The company's reputation is in ruins. Our contracts, every one of them, are collapsing." Vanessa's tearful wail followed moments later, directed at my mother. "Mom, James is furious. His company, it's all falling apart." Panic cascaded like dominoes. My father's face drained of color as he answered a call, his trembling hand gripping the phone. "What? No. It can't be serious. Are you sure?" His voice cracked, and for the first time in my life, I heard fear in it. The avalanche had begun, and nothing could stop it. And there I was, seated calmly at my own reception table, the golden light of the chandeliers washing over me as if I were in the eye of the storm. I lifted my champagne glass, savoring a sip. The crisp sparkle tasted sweeter than ever, pairing perfectly with the soft richness of the Boston cream pie. Beside me, Nathan's hand slid into mine, firm and steady, grounding me. The door burst open with a deafening crash. Guests rippled through the hall as my family stumbled inside. Gone was their usual poise. Mother's immaculate appearance had crumbled, her lipstick smudged. Mascara streaked down her cheeks. Father's tie hung crooked, his composure shattered. And Vanessa, oh, Vanessa, though still adorned in a glittering designer dress, was pale, trembling, her hands clutching her phone as if it were the last rope keeping her from drowning. "Olivia, please," Mother's voice cracked, desperate, raw. "James's company is collapsing, do something." Vanessa fell to her knees, sobbing, her wails echoing against the brick walls. "Big sister, help me, please. If the engagement is broken, if James leaves me, my life is over." The room froze once again. 50 pairs of eyes turned to me, waiting. The chandeliers above seemed to shine brighter, illuminating the scene as though it were a stage play reaching its climax. I lifted my glass once more, allowing the silence to stretch before I finally spoke. "Would you please be seated?" My tone was calm but edged with steel. It is terribly poor manners to disrupt a celebration in front of my guests. The sharpness of my rebuke jolted my mother into motion. Flustered, she nodded quickly, dabbing at her smeared makeup before sinking into a chair. Father followed, hollow-eyed. Vanessa collapsed into the seat beside them, clutching a napkin like a lifeline. Nathan squeezed my hand again, his warmth steadying me as I faced them. "All of James's $50 million deals may be cancelled?" I asked, tilting my head slightly. "Isn't this the harvest of what you sowed when you mocked my wedding as cheap and flaunted it on social media?" Vanessa choked on her sobs, but before she could answer, Thomas stepped forward, his voice cut clean through the air. "Richardson family," he began, his expression grave. "This is no longer a private matter. It has become a question of ethics, ethics that our industry cannot ignore." His eyes swept across my parents and sister, each word pressing them lower into their seats. "Public discrimination based on wealth and status, abandonment of family loyalty, flaunting cruelty on a public platform. These are not only shameful, they are fundamentally incompatible with the values we uphold." He raised his phone, the damning post glowing once more. "Cheap wedding, can't show it to my friends," and the likes from her own parents. "Do you realize the damage this has already caused?" Father's shoulders sagged, the fight leaving him. "We're already fielding calls from partners questioning whether the Richardson family can be trusted in any capacity," Thomas continued. "Trust, once broken, is not easily restored." Vanessa's mouth opened to protest, but I raised my hand sharply. "Be quiet, Vanessa." The firmness in my voice stunned her into silence. I had never spoken to her with such authority before, and the weight of it made her shrink back. "This," I said slowly, deliberately, "is nothing more than the consequence of your own actions. You chose to scorn me, to despise me. Now you reap what you have sown." I cut another piece of pie, the silver fork glinting in the light. Its sweetness lingered on my tongue as the silence thickened. But, we're family, aren't we? Vanessa's plea cracked through the stillness, fragile and pitiful. Family? I repeated softly, tilting my head. A bitter laugh slipped from my lips. You mean the kind of family that calls me an embarrassment? That celebrates only one daughter while abandoning the other? That's a curious definition of family. Her sobs grew louder, her luxury gown pooling like a puddle around her as she crumpled in disgrace. Perhaps, Thomas interjected, his tone steady. There is one path forward, but it will not be simple. The hall shifted again as every eye fixed on him. First, a public retraction and apology for the social media posts. Second, a written statement acknowledging wrongdoing and a commitment to reflection. Third, mandatory ethics training. And even then, rebuilding trust will take time, perhaps years. Father's lips trembled. Then, the deals? No, Thomas answered firmly. This is merely the minimum required to keep the door open. Whether trust can be restored is another matter entirely. At that moment, Nathan rose beside me, his voice, calm yet resolute, carried across the hall. Mother, father, Vanessa, value is not measured by money or appearances. True value lies in sincerity, kindness, and love. He placed his hand gently on my shoulder. This wedding is not grand, but it is filled with blessings from 50 people who cherish us, and those blessings are priceless. One by one, the guests nodded, their faces glowing with warmth and quiet solidarity. The power in their unity pressed against my family like an undeniable truth. And for the first time in my life, I saw tears of genuine regret streaming down my parents' faces. Vanessa, broken and trembling, buried her face in her hands. The balance of power had shifted forever.